Really feel it. You don't have to answer this out loud, but have you heard the word of God? Have you heard the voice of God? Do you hear the voice of God? Where does it come from? How does it sound? When did you know you heard it? Or have you been waiting this lifetime to hear it? Do you hear the word of God speak? There's two concepts in what I just started to say that can be tricks. They can be tricks because they can lead us actually into a land where we feel like we can't hear the voice of God. Those two words are these: from and hear. Where do you hear the voice of God coming from? The issue lies in this idea that when we're waiting for something to come from somewhere, we are inevitably separated from it. The moment we talk about it coming from somewhere, it can make it very difficult for it to be expressing in and through in ways of clarity and conviction. The other word is to hear. In our human condition, we put a lot of words on things. We explain experiences. But sometimes the words we choose to explain experiences fall short of the actual experience, no? Have you ever had that? Have you ever tried to share something with someone and recognized that no matter what words you put around it or within it or among it, it just falls flat compared to what you're really trying to get across? The word hear can limit us because it implies a certain God voice, a certain God language. And certainly there are people who hear a voice and who understand spirit as being one that speaks. But that's not all, is it? That would be limiting. Because what happens if you don't hear a voice? You're left out of the God club. Right? Left out, left behind, sitting there wondering, I don't get it. Why isn't God talking to me? Eric Butterworth says this: even as the one thing a fish can never find is water, so the one thing man can never find is God. Think about it. Think about it. Have you ever struggled to experience God? And are we willing to entertain the possibility that part of that struggle has been that we have taken on a language that implies a speaker and a listener, a giver and a recipient, language making it hard to think about, to talk about, or to experience, that in fact, to speak of the experience implies separation, even to sing of it, right? How can you sing of God? To sing of God, we have to put words on God. And the second we put words on God, we put words on other. And how can we experience the allness and the oneness and the completeness when we are having a concept of other? It's a paradox. It's a paradox because the moment we try to get it and we know it's already given, we're outside of it. The moment we try to feel it and try to ask for it when we know it was already given, we're wanting and waiting. You may feel like you had this experience yourself, but I grew up as a child listening in church to the instructions. And the instructions were ask God, and God will show you God's self. God will talk to you. God will lead you. God will guide you. Also, when I received the teachings of Jesus, the Christed, the anointed, the expanded consciousness, I received them in this way, that Jesus was a man, a person, and if you ask Jesus to come to you, Jesus will come to you and Jesus will show you things. Jesus will appear. So I sat as a young girl in my bed for hours and hours, going, Here I am, show me. Show me I'm looking. I tried so hard to open my eyes as wide as I could open them and look at everything as quietly as I could. I'm looking. If you move the blinds, I'll know. I'm looking. If you move through this room, I'll know. I'm looking. If you speak, I'll hear you. Anything. And it would even get painful to the point where I would go, I know though, Jesus, they say if I ask you to come, if I ask you to speak to me, I'll see you, I'll hear you. Why? Why can't I? Why can't I hear you? Why can't I see you? Are you feeling me here? We're taught, we're given these paradigms with the intention of teaching us, with the intention of pointing to an experience that can evolve in us. And many of us find ourselves getting older and older and older, but still being like a child, waiting for those experiences to unfold, saying, where is it? I hear it, I may even know it, but I haven't experienced what people are talking about. One of the issues here is that we're looking through the 5 senses. We're looking through what others tell us this experience of God will come through. Walt Whitman said, we are not all included between our hat and our boots. So our sense of perception is not all included in the 5 senses. My first experience of really getting it was when I went to the Unity of Boulder, not where I really got how to experience God, but when I really got that I have always known how to experience God, and that the Word of God has always been speaking, and that the God voice was active and alive in my life. And it took walking into a unity and hearing the ideas of how limiting it can be to put God in a body with a voice and a physical stature, how limiting it can be to make God a human, and to say that God is going to arrive and come and speak to you, that the idea of an anthropomorphic God, a God that has human attributes, can actually limit my experience of being able to experience God if I'm sitting here looking around for God, unless I'm looking around at other people. Because if I am waiting for God in a body, and I think that's what I'm reaching towards, I'm not getting God and I'm not getting myself. It's actually the reverse, is it not? That rather than giving God human characteristics and human traits, which are a limited part of an experience, it's a manifest experience. It's a tangible, physical experience to be human. It's an experience of separation where I see myself as I'm not you, you're not me, and I have to go beyond that to the invisible to remind myself that yes, I am you and you are me. So why not, rather than giving God human attributes, why not give ourselves an expanded idea of that which we are and recognize that we are not exactly human, that we are not contained between our hats and our feet, but that we are more, and that experiencing and intuiting and knowing our God language is the calling to look at that we are more. We are more. And so to erase away all of the programming and all of the ideas that someone may have taught us, whether or not they were well-intentioned. I've told this story a lot of times because I just love it. I have a nephew, Atticus, and he's almost 3, very, very intelligent. We met for Thanksgiving last year, and he was very excited to come meet the family for Thanksgiving and take a plane trip there. And as the trip got closer and closer, his mother started noticing that he was getting a little more nervous. She would point up to the planes and say, that's what we're going to be taking. We're going to be taking the plane. And the closer it got, the more interesting his experience. And she started to wonder, what is it that he doesn't seem excited about? There's something about this he doesn't seem excited about. And she asked him, what was it? What's going on? And he just stopped and he looked up at her one of the times when they were looking at the plane that takes us to get to the family. And he said, it's just that it would take a really big ladder to get up there. The things we don't think about. If you don't see it land and walk up, you just see it up there, and you have the concept that if I'm going to get from here to there, boy, that's a big ladder, and I have small legs, and that looks like it's going to take a really long time, and I'm going to be really tired because I know when we come up from the beach, I mean, that's only 10 steps, and that's a lot. So getting all the way up here. How many of us have aspects of our mind or our consciousness when we're talking about our God voice, our God language, that is still like the mind of a child? That is still not getting an aspect or a link or a piece. That is mistaken the ladder for something that really comes right down to get you, and you walk right in. That in fact it doesn't even need to come get you because it's already here. Are we willing to wake up to those places, those veils that keep us separated from our God voice? Frederick Douglass had his own experience of prayer and answered prayer. He said, I prayed for freedom for 20 years, but received no answer until I prayed with my legs. Until I prayed with my legs. So listening to that God voice and taking action on the God voice, knowing that you can pray, you can pray, you can pray, but part of it is not an experience separate from oneself, that we pray like wishing, but in fact we become. We become with our legs, our hearts, our minds, our own voices. So where is God's voice? Have you heard your own? Have you heard your own? One of my beloved Unity teachers, Norma Rosado, gave me another experience of deepening my practice. There was a time when I said to her, when we were talking about listening to God, and I said to her, behind the scenes, I said, Norma, I just got to be honest with you. I know a lot of people are talking about hearing this voice, and I don't hear a voice. I don't hear a voice. I don't hear a voice saying, Erin, go to ministerial school. Erin, don't go to ministerial school. Erin, do this. Erin, do that. I don't hear that. And I just said to her, frankly, I don't hear a voice. And she looked at me. And as if there was, fairy dust and clouds around her, she just leaned in and she looked at me. And she said, Erin, what other voice is there? What other voice is there? See, I was toiling between, my wisdom voice, my limited voice, my this voice, my that voice. And she gave me the portal. She gave me the portal, and she said, until you enter into the consciousness that there is one voice, until you enter into the consciousness that there is not an argument going on, that there are not sides, until you enter the consciousness of oneness, you won't hear it. You won't know that you are hearing it. There is but one voice. Going beyond the five senses. The Word of God, according to the dictionary, is a manifestation of the mind of God, a clear appearance, a manifestation of great emotion. Can anyone teach us or tell us what that is to us? Do you believe that you are perfectly designed to intuit, to listen, to experience, to feel, to know Spirit and your source in whatever way that you do, that it is so woven within the fabric of your nature that it might be confusing if you've ever heard an idea that it's outside of yourself or that you have to get all the way up there? Eric Butterworth taught that it's not going up to God, and it's not having God come down to you, but it's going within. That's the next key. The key is to going within to that still small voice, that sweet presence of peace within. So it's not so much an idea that we're exploring today of have you heard the word of God? Do you know your God voice? It's more this concept. How do you hear? How do you know? Think of a time when you really knew. You were immersed in the presence of love, saturated in wisdom, guided, directed, infused with life, in the power, in the moment, in the light. When you really know, just breathe into that. And if you haven't had it yet, that's okay. You will, because you probably have. You just haven't recognized it yet. There's a great series of books by a man named Gary Chapman, and he writes about the 5 languages of love, and he's also written a book called The 5 Languages of Forgiveness. And I love this series. He's a traditional Christian writer, and I love what he has put together because he helps relationships. He helps people in relationships find each other and connect. He helps with communication and languaging. He goes through this idea that most of the times in relationships, it's not that we're unhappy. It's not that something is being withheld from us. It's that we get lost in translation. It's that our love passes by. It doesn't meet the receptor site, because in the meantime, I have a different language than you might have. And if I can't read your language or hear your language, whether it's with love or forgiveness, we may as well have not communicated. But the same is true for our spiritual language, for knowing our spiritual intuition, for discovering our God voice. Even animals have this innate intuition within the fabric of our being. Animals know. They have wisdom. Even the environment, nature itself, acts according to a pure pattern of wisdom. If we were to follow nature in all of those things, do you think we would have any issues here if we were to observe, to follow, and to create in the likeness? According to divine wisdom, everything is born with all that it needs from seed to flower. I am a firm believer that there is a God language that is specifically individuated uniquely for you, for me, for each one of us. And we have to expand our experience of how we might experience and feel this truth. To some, it may be a feeling in the body, something in the solar plexus that just says, this is on or this is off. For another, it may be vibrancy around certain things. When I talk about these things, I feel more alive. When I do these things, I feel more alive. When I lean into this decision, something just feels more alive. For some, it may be a sound, a voice. For some, it may be a knowing. For some, it may be a train of thought that just emerges through oneself. That when you write it down, when you speak it, when you sing it, you get to your highest state of consciousness and conscious awareness of the word. Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, received a lot of his insights through what? Dreams. Through dreams. He would even have dreams about real estate purchases, what to follow and what to let go of. But one of his God languages was getting information through dreams. Now, if you were the little child that was taught to sit in a room and say, come to me, please speak to me, sweet spirit, here I am. And your God language was dreams, it'd be hard to get there, wouldn't it? Unless someone said to you, look, these are all of the ways that we have found so far, and yours might not be in there. You might be a pioneer. There might even be another one that hasn't been discovered that you're here to teach humanity about. But there is a God language for each of you, and these are some of the ways we've seen it show up. Maybe in your dreams. And then you go about the practice of trying them all on and seeing what resonates. Seeing when you feel alive. The first step in really taking our practice to the next level is overcoming the story of a separate sense of self. Listening with your own heart, bringing the ears within, recognizing that even in your heart you have ears to listen. Rather than being so quiet to listen for something outside, an audible voice. Be so quiet within that any veils of illusion, any veils of separation just drift away. And to approach the moment with pure curiosity, with a beginner's mind, not looking up but looking in. The next is this, to try it on, a dialogue. Many people arrive at the voice of Spirit through dialogue, through either journaling or experiencing a spontaneous flow of thoughts, sensing it in the body, and knowing that when the voice of peace emerges as the dominant voice, when the voice of love emerges within the consciousness, when the voice of harmony emerges, that there is comfort in that voice, there is wisdom there. The next is to engage in a listening that makes us expand. Carl Messinger, the psychologist, said, listening is a magnetic and strange thing, a creative force. The friends who listen to us are the ones we move toward. When we are listened to, it creates us, makes us unfold and expand. That same knowing, that same quote, can be directly applied to our spiritual practice, to the idea, and you can't even say it in words, of us and Spirit, because there is only one. That when we are drawn into it, when there is a deep listening, it causes us to be created. It makes us unfold and makes us expand. Even the master teachers throughout the ages have had to listen, have had to develop their own innate wisdom that is so trustworthy they know they could follow it. Frederick Douglass wouldn't have done what he did had he not had a voice within him, a presence within him of wisdom that went beyond everything he saw in the outside. Jesus went to the mountaintop. Jesus went against the customs of the time that were in his very religion and taught something different. Buddha went out and tested everything. He taught, test everything. Test it. See. Try it on for yourself. If it leads to good things, if it leads to a wondrous expression, trust it. Live it. Eric Butterworth, in the book Celebrate Yourself, said this: Jesus demonstrated and taught that every person is an eachness within the allness of God, an integral part of a dynamic universe. It has been said you can trust a universe that creates flowers, and you can trust a universe that has made you, for it has made you in and of itself. You are the focus of an infinite idea. Within you is the divine pattern of what you can be, the gentle urge to press on in the higher calling of God. When you catch this idea of the God spell, you will realize that the divine sonship is not the projection into you of something unlike you. God cannot project himself out of himself. God can only be God. You are not an individual in God, but a unique individuation of God, with the divine firmament, the God spell, all wrapped within and inseparable from you. He goes on to say, know your oneness with God. Feel the life, substance, and intelligence of God streaming into you from all sides. Dwell in the glorious feeling that the universe is involved in you as nature is in a flower. It is the ceaseless longing of the Creator to fulfill its divine pattern of the Christ in and as you. Take heart. The whole universe is on your side. So how do you know if you have a God voice? How do you know if you have God language? The answer is this: if you are alive, you do. Namaste.